iPhone 13 is top secret, but it's already leaked. A lot. How is it almost a full year before Tim Cook gets on stage and says,
"We do have one more thing,"
that we already know every detail and feature and basically everything we need to know about the brand new iPhone for that year? How does it work? In this video, I'm talking exactly about how the iPhone leaks, who's leaking the information, how it's getting out, what crazy things Apple is trying to do to stop it, and how, because of the leaks, we basically have a pretty good idea of exactly what to expect with the iPhone 13 coming soon. And a big thanks to iMazing for sponsoring this video. Now, before we get into the specifics of the iPhone 13, we kind of have to talk about Apple as a whole. Why is it that one of the world's most secretive companies, that seemingly has access to the best security detail in the world and endless amounts of cash, cannot keep a product as small as the iPhone, or even as small as AirTags, out of the public spotlight and completely under wraps until its official debut? Can it really be that difficult to keep something as small as an iPhone or an Apple Watch completely hidden and under wraps until Apple is ready to officially make it public? Can it really be that hard? Well, yes it can. And you'd be surprised at just how much of a massive headache these small products have caused Apple. In case you missed the name of this channel or you're not looking at that neon sign behind me, there is an immense amount of enthusiasm and interest in Apple as a company. And people like you and me and many people who subscribe to this channel like to analyze Apple's every move and see exactly what they're doing and try to guess what they're gonna do before they actually do it. There is an entire business around the business of Apple and following every move, looking at every deal they make, trying to figure out what the company is up to next. So who's actually leaking information on the brand new iPhone or the iPad? Is it people like directly involved in Cupertino working on the project? Is it an official Apple employee? Well, sometimes, yes, it can be, but in most cases, it's probably not. Remember that Apple is a massive company, and even though the spaceship at Apple Park looks ominously large, it actually only houses 12,000 employees, which is a big number, but not in relation to all of the other retail employees and employees they have spread across different buildings and office parks and locations all around the world. In total, as of 2020, Apple was employing 147,000 people. That is a lot of different people and groups to manage on a day-to-day basis, let alone making sure not one of those employees happens to leak any secretive information out to the public. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, because in addition to all of those employees, Apple also has contracts with different contractors and vendors and suppliers and manufacturers, and these are people that do everything from supply Apple with the parts needed for future iPhones, to actually building the devices themselves, to creating ads and content for them. There are a lot of people kind of in this inner circle of Apple, and many of which who actually don't officially work for Apple itself. And this is kind of where a lot of the information has been disseminating from over the last couple of years, and it's through these manufacturers and suppliers that we get a really good idea of what is coming next with future iPhones and other Apple products. And there have been some pretty crazy accurate iPhone rumors and predictions in the past. I mean, in the early days, look at the iPhone 3G. Before that phone became official, we got some pretty good looking photos of every angle of that device pretty much. We had a really good idea of what Apple was planning to launch. And then just a few years later, the iPhone 4 debacle happened, which is regarded by many as the absolute worst Apple leak of all time. And for those unfamiliar with the story, I'll give you a little synopsis. Basically, an Apple engineer walks into a bar and reportedly loses an unreleased iPhone. Now, it's still disputed to this day whether that phone was stolen or if it was left in a bar, then later sold, or if it was really lost. But ultimately, it ended up in the hands of Gizmodo editor Jason Chen, who realized the case around the phone was fake. It made it look like a current iPhone 3GS, but when he took that case off, he realized this was a brand new prototype unreleased iPhone 4 with a radically new design that we weren't supposed to see for months. And because of this incident, Apple has really doubled down their security efforts to make sure that something like this never happens again. And over the years, we saw less crystal clear images of unreleased devices, we saw some spy shots from the factory, maybe some CAD renders, to now we really mostly learn all of our information from the supply chain and some inside sources at Apple, though Apple is currently suing an ex-employee for allegedly leaking information. So I'd venture to guess that they are going to even double down efforts even more internally to make sure no information leaks out from the top. Which leads us to kind of our big question, who's actually leaking this information? And I think it actually kind of comes down to three different types of people. You have journalists, you have analysts, and you have leakers. Let's start first with the analysts, because this is actually where we get a lot of our information these days, from analysts like Ming-Chi Kuo, who are giving us a lot of the juicy details on upcoming Apple products. And how they're able to get that information is from a combination of things. Analysts really look at Apple as a whole, and also in every little move they make. They look at Apple's past experiences, they look at their investments, acquisitions, patents, they look into market trends, competitors, emerging technologies. They try to just put a roadmap together, kind of looking at the industry as a whole and making some estimations and predictions on what new technologies Apple could adopt in future products and kind of seeing where the company is headed to next. They also oftentimes build very strong relationships with companies in Apple's supply chain, so the companies that actually give Apple and supply them with different parts for future products. This is a very important part of the leaks process, which we'll get back to in a minute. Next up, you have the journalists. These are kind of a little bit more easy to kind of understand what they do, because covering Apple is like covering any other business. You again take a holistic approach, you kind of look and see what Apple's done in the past, make some estimations and predictions for the future, and you also build up sources who could be in various parts of the company or with contractors to also get some inside information and some scoops on what Apple is doing next. These are publications like Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal, for example. And last, but certainly not least, the newest addition and kind of the most mysterious of the bunch are these just random leakers who happen to appear on Twitter and leak information on unreleased Apple products. These can be accounts like CoinX and Love to Dream, which actually have a pretty stellar reputation at about 90% accuracy so far. So even though they might not be as well known as a Ming-Chi Kuo, their work kind of speaks for itself, and they're more often than not usually right. Let's take a quick break from the iPhone 13 leak saga and talk a little bit about one of my favorite iPhone utilities of all time. That is this video's sponsor, iMazing. iMazing is an incredibly powerful and feature-packed application for both Windows and Mac that gives you full control over your iOS device. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife for iOS device management. It lets you do so much. You'll want to quickly and easily export all your chats from WhatsApp or iMessage to a PDF, or you want to have super sleek time machine style backups with your iPhone. iMazing is pretty amazing because it can do all that plus a whole lot more. One of the things that I love most about iMazing is that it makes it so simple to do things that have just become so overly complicated and complex these days. Like easily moving files on and off your iPhone, like photos and videos and music and just plain documents. It's not so easy to do when you rely on cloud syncing and having to deal with iTunes. iMazing makes it so simple you can do everything within the app with just a couple of clicks, and there's even a simple drag and drop area that lets you quickly and easily get files from your computer to your iOS device with just a click. And beyond that, I love having access to all of the advanced technical features inside of iMazing as well, like a live look at my iOS device's console in real time, or one simple way to manage all of the apps on my iOS device in one place, and the ability to do manual software updates, which, fun fact, I had to use the other day because my wife's iPhone just would not software update for some reason over the air. So I plugged it into iMazing, I did a manual software update, and it worked like a charm. So take full control over your iPhone and iPad today by checking out iMazing at the link right down below. Again, available for both Windows and Mac, packed with a bunch of very useful features and utilities, and it's time to take full control over your Apple devices and all the data on them as well. Learn more and try iMazing for free today at the link right down below. So now that we have a good understanding of how the information is getting out and who's leaking the information, let's take a look at the current rumors for the iPhone 13 and kind of match some of the rumored features to the leaks that supply the info to kind of get a really good idea of how all of this really comes together. First, let's start with the design of the all-new iPhone 13. And this actually does not require the work of a leaker because we can be our own analysts and figure things out based off of past Apple moves and past decisions they have made. And if you kind of look at the recent iPhone launches Apple has done, you'll notice that Apple typically does not change the design of the device every year. Usually it's every other year, or more likely than not lately, it's like every 2 to 3 years. So using this information that we've gathered, we can make an educated guess, we can be our own analysts, and understand that the design of the iPhone 13 is probably gonna remain pretty much exactly the same to that of the iPhone 12. So that's how we get this first piece of information, which also has been confirmed by other actual analysts and leakers. Next, let's talk about the iPhone 13's smaller notch. This is an example of a leak being basically confirmed by multiple credible sources. First, you have analyst Ming-Chi Kuo, who is confirming that the iPhone 13 should feature a smaller notch. This is also confirmed by two other sources, Mako Takara and DigiTimes, both overseas publications that have very close relationships with the supply chains in Asia, many of which that Apple used to get the parts for future iPhones. And like with any news story, the more sources that confirm something, the better. And in this case, because we have multiple credible sources backing up this information, we can make an educated guess and a prediction that yes, the notch on the iPhone 13 will be smaller. How much smaller, we don't know. We don't have exact details, but it should be at least a little bit smaller than the notch we've had on the iPhone since the iPhone 10. Next, let's talk portless iPhone. Could we see a portless iPhone 13 Pro in 2021? Well, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. We first heard rumblings of this from actually Ming-Chi Kuo himself back in 2019, who predicted that Apple was working to launch a portless iPhone potentially in 2021. But Kuo giveth and Kuo taketh away, and he has now given a subsequent report kind of clarifying his stance now in 2021, saying that he doesn't look like Apple is going to launch a portless iPhone after all, and no, they will probably not move away from Lightning to USB-C or anything else. It's going to remain a Lightning-based iPhone. Bloomberg was also a publication that kind of said that Apple was contemplating possibly removing the port on future iPhones, but again, doesn't look like that is going to happen this year on the iPhone 13. Next, what about the display on the iPhone 13? Will it finally have ProMotion? Well, yes, it looks like from multiple sources, the iPhone 13 Pro models will have a ProMotion display. This is actually thanks to a leak from a number of months ago that gave us some insight into LG's display production process, and that they were ramping up display technology for Apple that included LTPO technology for this ProMotion feature to exist, basically making it more efficient and making it possible on these future iPhone models. This is also kind of where you have leaker, analyst, journalist combos, hybrids like Max Weinbach, who are giving some more information on the iPhone 13. And according to him, the iPhone 13 will have an always-on display, which will basically kind of function like the Apple Watch, giving you notification alerts and access to a little bit of information right from the lock screen without ever having to actually turn the display on, which should be super cool to see. Next, let's move on to the iPhone 13's camera system. And again, this is another example of multiple sources basically kind of confirming the same thing and also having some contradicting news from different sources. DigiTimes, ET News, and Ming-Chi Kuo all say that the iPhone 13 will expand this sensor shift stabilization that's currently only in the 12 Pro Max, but this is also where you have some heavyweight analysts kind of contradicting each other, and this is kind of where the mystery still remains. You have Barclays, which says that all of the new iPhone models will receive this new and improved ultra-wide camera, while Ming-Chi Kuo says only the Pro-end iPhones for this coming year, the 13 Pro and Pro Max, will have this upgraded f1.8 ultra-wide lens. Now, what about Touch ID under the display? Because this is really a make or break feature for many people that will decide whether or not they're going to splurge and buy the iPhone 13 or hold off until next year. And this one has sort of been a mixed bag. We've heard from big publications like the Wall Street Journal and Barclays that Apple is working on an iPhone with Face ID and Touch ID that could potentially launch this year, this fall, in 2021. We also heard this from Ming-Chi Kuo, but then again, he's now clarified those statements again and shed a little less light and a little less clarity on the fact that this could happen, not really giving any specifics. So we really don't know which way this one's going to go. We hope that Apple is working to launch Face ID and Touch ID on the iPhone 13, but this might be one of those rumors that just persists forever forever and will really come down to the wire, and we might not know whether or not the iPhone 13 has Touch ID or not until it makes its official public debut in one of those super slick Apple videos this fall. We can also make some more educated guesses for ourselves. We know that Apple's gonna put more powerful silicon inside, probably the A15 processor, and also 5G will continue to expand and get better, and we're learning that the Snapdragon X60 cell modem will be powering 5G inside of the iPhone 13. Now, some might wonder why Apple isn't using the latest and greatest from Qualcomm, the Snapdragon X65, and to make a long answer short, basically, the prevailing theory is that Apple kind of works a little ahead on iPhones. They have to make sure that all the components and everything all work together. They can be built efficiently and effectively and at scale. And all of this kind of can be done months before they actually enter production. So typically Apple is kind of working with a little bit of almost older components because they have to go through all these validations and all these tests to make sure everything is ready to go for their fall launch. So most likely, because this X65 came out last month in February 2021, Apple is already hard at work and probably has finalized most of the components for the iPhone we'll see this fall. So that's why the X60 is the go-to choice and why the X65 will probably be included in the iPhone 14 of 2022. So that is it. That's how the iPhone 13 leaks. That is how we know all of this information, and that's where all the information continues to come from as we get a more clear picture of what's coming next from Apple. And again, of course, like most things, typically the closer we get to the actual launch, the more information leaks out and the better understanding and the clearer picture we have of what is coming next from Apple. So what do you guys think? Are you interested in this process? Would you rather not know? Would you rather the leaks stop and everything just be a surprise and you kind of are delighted when you see it announced for the first time? Or do you obsessively and compulsively check all of the leaks and the blogs and watch videos like this because you just can't get enough of Apple leaks? Let me know in the comments down below where you stand on this issue. And I think that's gonna do it for me in this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Robert Rosenfeld from the Apple Circle, and I'll see ya in the next one.